The massive alien ship moved through space like a dark mountain floating among the stars. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the enemy vessel approach Earth. The alien ship was 3 tons larger than anything humans had ever built, and its black hull seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars. Jake had seen many battles in his 20 years of service, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The communication panel beeped, and his officer turned toward him with worry in her eyes. The aliens wanted to talk. The hologram flickered to life in the center of the bridge, and Jake found himself face to face with something that looked like a cross between a lizard and an insect. The creature stood 8 feet tall with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red in the darkness. Its voice came through the translator as cold and mechanical. Admiral Zekthar of the Hegemony Coalition had come to deliver a message to humanity. Behind the alien leader, Jake could see the bridge of their ship filled with creatures from different worlds. Some looked like walking trees, while others resembled giant spiders. All of them stared at the humans with the same cold hatred. The alien Admiral spoke without emotion as he delivered his ultimatum. Humanity had expanded too quickly across the galaxy and now controlled 43 star systems. The Coalition had decided that humans were a threat to galactic peace and stability. They were giving humanity 30 days to abandon all but 4 of their worlds. Jake felt his blood turn cold as he listened to the demands. Humans would have to leave 39 of their colonies and return to Earth and only 3 other worlds. All of their mining operations would be shut down, and their exploration fleets would be disbanded. Any humans who refused to leave would be killed. Dr. Lisa Carter stepped forward from her position near the communication console. She was Earth's best expert on alien cultures and had spent years trying to build peaceful relationships with other species. Her voice shook as she tried to reason with the Coalition. Admiral, Lisa explained that humans had never attacked any alien worlds and had always tried to avoid conflicts with other species. She pointed out the human colonies were built on empty worlds that no one else wanted. The mining operations were in asteroid belts that had no value to anyone else. Admiral Zekthar listened to her words without showing any emotion. When she finished speaking, he made it clear that the Coalition had already made their decision. Humans were too aggressive and unpredictable to be allowed to continue their expansion. The ultimatum was not open to negotiation. Commander Ryan Walsh had been quietly recording everything from his position at the intelligence station. He knew that every word of this conversation would be analyzed by military experts back on Earth. Ryan had spent his career studying alien military capabilities, and he could see the confidence in the Coalition Admiral's posture. The alien leader continued speaking and explained that the Coalition represented 12 different species with a combined fleet of over 3,000 warships. They had technologies that were centuries ahead of anything humans possessed. Resistance would be futile and would only result in the complete destruction of humanity. To demonstrate their power, Admiral Zekthar ordered his fleet to destroy the mining station at Kepler 442. Jake watched in horror as the distant space station simply vanished in a flash of light. 8,000 human miners and their families had been killed in seconds without any warning. The alien admiral's image flickered as he prepared to end the transmission. He reminded the humans that they had 30 days to comply with the ultimatum. Any attempt to resist or negotiate would result in the immediate destruction of human colonies, starting with the most populated worlds. Patricia Kane was watching the transmission from her command center on Luna. She had built her career preparing for exactly this kind of threat, and now the moment had arrived. Around her, dozens of officers worked at their stations coordinating the defense of human space. Patricia had served in 3 different wars against alien raiders and pirates, but she had never faced anything like the Coalition fleet. The intelligence reports showed that each of their ships was more powerful than an entire human battle group. Their weapons could destroy planets, and their shields could deflect anything in the human arsenal. But Patricia knew something that the aliens did not. For the past 30 years, humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario. While the Coalition thought they were dealing with a normal species, they were about to discover just how wrong they were. President Alex Turner was in his office in New Geneva when the transmission ended. He had been elected on a platform of peaceful expansion and diplomatic relations with alien species. Now he faced the greatest crisis in human history, and the decisions he made in the next few hours would determine the survival of his species. Alex called an emergency session of the Earth Council, and within 2 hours, representatives from every human world were connected by quantum communication. The debate was fierce, as some council members argued for accepting the ultimatum while others demanded military resistance. The president listened to all the arguments before making his decision. He stood before the cameras and addressed not just the Earth Council, but every human in the galaxy. His words were broadcast to all 43 colonies and every ship in human space. Alex Turner rejected the Coalition ultimatum completely. He declared that humanity would never bow to alien threats, and that every human world would be defended to the last person. No human colony would be abandoned, and no human would be forced to leave their home because of alien demands. The president's speech continued as he explained that humanity had always sought peace, but would never accept slavery. The Coalition had made a terrible mistake in threatening human freedom, and they would soon learn that humans were not as helpless as they appeared. Unknown to the aliens, Alex Turner's defiant speech contained coded phrases that activated secret protocols throughout human space. Military commanders who had been waiting for years received their activation orders. Scientists in hidden laboratories began powering up equipment that had been tested in absolute secrecy. Admiral Zeke Thar received the human response aboard his flagship and dismissed it as the desperate bluffing of an inferior species. He ordered his fleet to begin moving toward human colonies, to begin the systematic conquest that would teach the galaxy what happened to species that refused to obey the Coalition. The alien admiral had no way of knowing that his ultimatum had just activated humanity's greatest weapon. It was not a ship or a bomb or any kind of technology that the Coalition could understand. It was something far more dangerous than anything they had ever encountered in their long history of conquest. 30-day countdown had begun, but the aliens would not have to wait that long to discover their mistake. Colonel Marcus Stone received the coded message while he was eating breakfast in his quarters on the far side of the moon. The simple phrase hidden in the president's speech meant that 30 years of preparation were about to be tested. Marcus put down his coffee and walked to his secure terminal to input the activation codes that would change everything. Project Lazarus had been the most classified program in human military history. Only a few hundred people knew it existed, and even fewer understood its true purpose. Marcus had spent his entire career building something that the rest of humanity thought was impossible, and the aliens would think was insane. Deep beneath the lunar surface, Dr. Helen Brooks was already at work in the command center when Marcus arrived. She had been waiting for this day since she was a young scientist studying human adaptation in extreme environments. The massive screens around her showed data from hidden bases across human space as they came online one by one. Helen explained to Marcus that the awakening process was already beginning. In secret facilities that had been built over decades, specially trained humans were being brought out of deep sleep and prepared for combat. These were not normal soldiers, but something that the galaxy had never seen before. The first location on their list was Titan Base, hidden deep within Saturn's largest moon. Lieutenant Commander Tony Garcia took his shuttle through the methane clouds that covered the moon's surface. He had been to Titan many times, but always to the official research station that the aliens knew about. Today he was going somewhere that did not exist on any official records. Tony's shuttle landed in an underground hangar that had been carved out of solid ice 50 years earlier. As he walked through the corridors, he could smell the methane in, the air that would kill a normal human in seconds. But the people who lived here were not normal humans anymore. The first person he met was Captain Amy Foster, who had been born on Titan and had never breathed normal air in her life. Her lungs had adapted to process methane, and her blood could carry gases that would be toxic to anyone from Earth. She could survive in Titan's atmosphere without any protection and could work in conditions that would destroy the best environmental. Suits.Amy led Tony deeper into the base, where 30,000 humans had been living in secret for decades. These people had adapted to life in one of the most hostile environments in the solar system. Their bodies had changed in ways that allowed them to thrive where normal humans would die instantly. The children born on Titan could see clearly in the orange haze that covered the moon's surface. Their skin was thicker and could resist the cold that would freeze normal blood in minutes. They moved through the methane atmosphere like it was their natural home, because for them it was their natural home. Major Sandra White was coordinating similar awakenings across human space from her command post on Europa. The humans living beneath the ice of Jupiter's moon had developed even more extreme adaptations. They could survive in temperatures that would turn normal air into liquid and could work in the crushing depths of Europa's hidden ocean. Sandra watched as teams of Europa humans prepared for combat operations. These people could survive in the vacuum of space for hours without protection because their blood had adapted to function at pressures that would explode normal human cells. They had been training for this war their entire lives without knowing when it would come. Mars Captain Danny Rodriguez was visiting the polar research stations that officially studied the planet's ice caps. But beneath the official facilities were vast networks of tunnels where humans had been adapting to the extreme cold and thin atmosphere for generations. These people could work outside without environmental suits and could survive radiation levels that would kill normal humans in days. The asteroid belt colonies were even more impressive. Major Carol Thompson traveled between the mining stations that floated in the emptiness between Mars and Jupiter. The humans who lived on these rocks had adapted to zero gravity and could work in hard vacuum using only basic breathing equipment, but the most extreme group was still being contacted by Captain Bobby Chun aboard his stealth ship Silent Running. His destination was a base that officially did not exist anywhere near the sun. The records showed it as a solar research probe, but in reality, it housed humans who had adapted to live in the sun's outer atmosphere. Bobby's ship used special shields as it approached the solar base hidden in the sun's corona. The humans living there had adapted to radiation levels that would cook normal humans instantly. Their skin could absorb solar radiation like plants, absorb sunlight, and their bodies could function at temperatures that would melt most metals. Bobby made contact with the solar base commander. He could barely believe what he was seeing. These humans glowed with stored solar energy and could work in environments that the aliens thought were completely impossible for any biological life. They had been preparing weapons and equipment that could function in the heart of a star. Back on Earth, Colonel Marcus Stone was reviewing reports from all the hidden bases as they came online. Each group of adapted humans had developed unique capabilities based on their environment. The cold world humans could survive absolute zero temperatures. The high-gravity humans had become incredibly strong. The radiation world humans could walk through areas that would kill anyone else. Dr. Helen Brooks explained to the military commanders that this had always been the plan. When humans first began expanding into space, they had not chosen the easiest worlds to colonize. Instead, they had deliberately sought out the most hostile environments they could find and sent volunteers to adapt to them over generations. The program had been disguised as scientific research and exploration, but its real purpose was military preparation. Every harsh environment that humans had settled was training for war against any species that might threaten human freedom. The volunteers who went to these worlds knew they were sacrificing normal lives so that humanity would be ready for exactly this kind of threat. The Coalition had intercepted some human communications about these adapted populations, but their scientists had dismissed the reports as impossible. Their biology indicated that no life form could survive in the conditions that humans claimed to be living in. Admiral Zekthar had ordered his intelligence officers to ignore what he considered obvious lies. The alien admiral was confident that his fleet could easily crush human resistance. His ships were moving toward the outer human colonies to begin the systematic conquest that would teach the galaxy what happened to species that refused to obey the Coalition. He had no idea that humanity's true strength was not in their ships or weapons, but in their people. Colonel Marcus Stone smiled as he watched the final base's report-ready status. The aliens thought they were attacking a normal species, but they were about to discover that humans had spent decades becoming something much more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever seen before. The Coalition fleet arrived in New Boston 3 days ahead of schedule. Admiral Vera Adams watched from her command ship as dozens of alien vessels surrounded the human colony world. She had been expecting this attack, and her defense plans were already in motion. The aliens thought they were about to capture a normal human settlement, but they were walking into a trap that had been 50 years in the making. New Boston was a high-gravity world where normal humans needed powered suits just to walk around. The official records showed a population of 2 million colonists living in domed cities on the planet's surface. What the records did not show was the vast underground civilization that had been growing beneath the planet for decades. Admiral Zekthar stood on the bridge of his flagship as his invasion fleet took positions around New Boston. His intelligence reports indicated that the human defenders had only 12 warships and basic planetary defense systems. The battle should be over within hours and would serve as an example to other human colonies of what happened to those who resisted the Coalition. Admiral Adams knew that her small fleet could not win a direct battle against the alien ships. Her strategy was to put up enough resistance to look convincing, and then retreat to the planet's surface. The aliens would follow standard Coalition procedure and land-ground forces to secure the population centers before beginning orbital bombardment. Space battle began when the human ships opened fire on the approaching alien fleet. Admiral Adams commanded her vessels from the bridge of her heavy cruiser as they fought a desperate delaying action against overwhelming odds. Her ships used hit-and-run tactics to avoid destruction while making the aliens think they were facing serious resistance. After 6 hours of fighting, the human fleet began its planned retreat toward New Boston. 3 of Admiral Adams' ships had been destroyed, and the rest were showing heavy damage as they fled toward the planet's atmosphere. The aliens followed them down, believing they had won an easy victory. The Coalition ground forces landed near the FY, largest human city, expecting to find frightened civilians hiding in their emergency shelters. Instead, they found empty buildings and abandoned streets. The entire surface population had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a ghost town that showed no signs of recent habitation. Commander Vextar led the alien ground troops as they searched the empty city for signs of human resistance. His soldiers were equipped with the best armor and weapons the Coalition could provide. They had conquered dozens of worlds and had never encountered serious opposition from any species they attacked. The first sign that something was wrong came when the ground beneath the alien troops began to shake. Commander Vextar ordered his soldiers to take defensive positions as massive holes opened in the streets around them. What emerged from those holes was not what any of the aliens had expected to see. The humans who climbed out of the underground tunnels looked normal at first glance, but their movements were different. They moved with a fluid grace that seemed impossible in the high-gravity environment. Their muscles bulged beneath their simple clothing, and their eyes showed no fear as they looked at the alien invaders. Sergeant Kevin Davis was one of the first underground humans to reach the surface. He had been born in the deep tunnels beneath New Boston and had never seen the sky until today. His bones were 3 times denser than normal human bones, and his heart could pump blood through a circulatory system that was designed to function. Under crushing pressure, Kevin and his squad moved toward the alien positions without any weapons or armor. The Coalition soldiers opened fire with energy weapons that could cut through steel, but the underground humans kept coming. The energy beams that hit them seemed to have no effect as they continued their advance. Commander Vextar watched in horror as his soldiers' weapons proved useless against the approaching humans. The energy blasts that should have killed them instantly barely left marks on their skin. When the humans reached the alien battle lines, they began tearing through powered armor with their bare hands. Kevin grabbed the nearest alien soldier and lifted him off the ground with one hand. The Coalition troopers' armor was designed to protect against energy weapons and explosive rounds, but it crumpled like paper in Kevin's grip. He threw the alien across the street, where it crashed into a building with enough force to leave a crater in the wall. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The underground humans moved through the alien forces like they were made of cardboard. Powered armor that could resist tank rounds was ripped apart by human hands. Energy weapons that could melt through starship hulls could not even slow down. The attacking humans, Dr. Rachel Moore, had been the administrator of New Boston's surface colony before the evacuation. She watched the battle from her command post deep underground as her people destroyed the alien invasion force. She had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, and now she was watching decades of planning come to fruition. The underground humans had been genetically adapted over generations to survive in New Boston's crushing gravity. Their cardiovascular systems could function under pressure that would kill normal humans instantly. Their bones and muscles had grown dense and strong enough to move easily in an environment where normal humans could barely stand. Rachel activated the colony's communication system and broadcast the victory to every human world in the galaxy. Her message was simple, but it changed everything the aliens thought they knew about human capabilities. The Coalition had just learned that humans were not the weak species they appeared to be. Commander Vextar tried to retreat to his landing ships, but found his escape route blocked by more underground humans. These humans moved with a speed that seemed impossible in the high-gravity environment. They reached the landing zone before the fleeing aliens and began destroying the Coalition spacecraft on the ground. Admiral Jek Thar watched the disaster unfold from his flagship in orbit. His ground forces were being wiped out by humans who should not have been able to survive on the planet's surface. His sensors showed energy readings from the humans that made no sense according to Coalition science. The alien admiral ordered his fleet to begin orbital bombardment of the human positions, but found that his targets had vanished back into the underground tunnel systems. His weapons could destroy the empty surface cities, but could not reach the vast civilization that existed beneath the planet's crust. Commander Steve Johnson was monitoring the battle from his hidden base on Luna when Admiral Zekthar began the orbital bombardment. Steve had been waiting for exactly this moment to reveal humanity's next surprise. He activated communication systems that had been hidden throughout human space for decades. The message Steve sent was received by secret human bases in asteroid fields and planetary rings throughout the galaxy. Ships that had been hiding in the darkness for years began powering up their engines and weapon systems. The Coalition was about to discover that the underground humans on New Boston were just the beginning of their problems. Admiral Zekthar received reports that human ships were emerging from hiding places throughout Coalition-controlled space. These were not the same vessels his fleet had easily defeated in the initial battle. These ships were moving in ways that defied everything. The Coalition knew about physics and biology. General Patricia Kane stood in her command center, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. The victory at New Boston had been just the beginning, and now it was time to show the Coalition what humanity was truly capable of. She activated Phase 2 of the human response and sent orders to strike forces that had been waiting in the darkness for decades. Captain Frank Miller received his orders while his ship floated in the corona of a distant star. His vessel was crewed entirely by solar-adapted humans who could survive in temperatures that would melt normal spacecraft. The ship's hull glowed with stored solar energy as Frank prepared to lead his squadron against Coalition bases that the aliens thought were completely safe. Frank's target was a Coalition supply depot built near the star, Rigel, where the intense radiation made normal operations impossible. The aliens had chosen the location specifically because they believed no biological life could survive the stellar environment. They were about to learn how wrong they were about human limitations. The human ships emerged from the star's corona like glowing spirits rising from fire. Frank and his crew did not need environmental suits or radiation shielding because their bodies had adapted to absorb and process the deadly energy that surrounded them. They moved through the stellar atmosphere like it was their natural home. The Coalition defenders at the supply depot detected the approaching human ships, but their sensors could not understand what they were seeing. The human vessels were operating in radiation levels that should have killed their crews instantly. The alien commander sent desperate messages requesting immediate reinforcement, but no Coalition ship could enter the stellar environment to help. Frank led the attack on the supply depot with his crew, working in conditions that violated everything the aliens knew about biology. When the human ships took damage from enemy fire, the solar-adapted crews simply stepped outside their vessels and repaired the hull damage while floating in the star's corona. The Coalition defenders watched in terror as humans worked in hard vacuum surrounded by plasma that was hotter than most ship engines. Major Catherine Young was commanding a different type of operation from her position in the deep space between star systems. Her forces were composed of void-adapted humans who had learned to survive in the absolute emptiness where no normal life could exist. These humans could live for months in hard vacuum, feeding off cosmic radiation and trace elements in space dust. Catherine's people had been living in the darkness between stars for so long that they had become invisible to normal sensors. They moved through space using only the faintest energy signatures and could survive impacts that would destroy normal spacecraft. The Coalition had been sending supply convoys through these empty regions for years, without knowing that human forces were watching every movement. The attack on the Coalition supply lines began simultaneously across dozens of star systems. Catherine's void-adapted humans emerged from the cosmic darkness to strike at enemy transports that were traveling between Coalition worlds. The alien crews found themselves under attack by humans who could operate their ships while floating in hard vacuum. The Coalition transport captain Morgan was commanding a supply convoy when the human attack began. His ships were protected by energy shields and armed escorts, but the humans ignored his defenses completely. They attached themselves to his ship's hull and began cutting through the armor with tools that should not have functioned in the vacuum of space. Captain Morgan watched through his ship's cameras as humans worked on his hull, without any protection from the deadly environment around them. The void-adapted humans could survive the absolute zero temperatures and cosmic radiation that filled the space between stars. They moved across his ship's surface like they were walking on solid ground instead of floating in the most hostile environment in the universe. Dr. Amanda Clark was coordinating intelligence operations from her hidden base in the asteroid belt. When she received confirmation that Phase 2 was succeeding beyond all expectations, The reports from across the galaxy showed that humanity's adapted populations were striking coalition targets in environments where the aliens had thought they were completely safe. Amanda had spent years infiltrating coalition space with teams of specially adapted humans who could survive on alien worlds. These infiltration teams had been establishing hidden bases and gathering intelligence while living in conditions that would kill normal humans. Now those teams were revealing themselves as they began sabotage operations behind enemy lines. The coalition world of Kethmer was a high-gravity planet with a methane atmosphere that was considered one of their most secure military bases. The aliens had built their fortress there because they believed no other species could survive the planet's hostile environment. They had not counted on humans who had adapted to even worse conditions. The human infiltration team on Kethmer had been living underground for 15 years while gathering intelligence about coalition military operations. These humans had adapted to breathe the methane atmosphere and could move easily in the crushing gravity that would flatten normal soldiers. When they received their activation orders, they began systematically destroying the coalition base from within. Admiral Ben Tucker commanded the main human fleet as it began offensive operations against coalition positions throughout the galaxy. His ships were crewed by adapted humans who could survive damage and environmental conditions that would force alien crews to retreat. The human vessels pushed far beyond their design limitations, treating destruction and disaster as minor inconveniences. Ben's flagship led the attack on the coalition stronghold at Wolf 359, where the aliens had assembled a massive battle fleet. The enemy ships outnumbered the human forces by 10 to 1, but Ben knew that numbers meant nothing when his crews could operate under conditions that would kill normal spacers. When the battle began, the human ships immediately began maneuvers that generated gravitational forces no normal crew could survive. Ben's people endured accelerations that would turn alien bodies into liquid while maintaining perfect control of their weapons and navigation systems. The coalition ships tried to match the human tactics, but their crews were crushed by forces their biology could not handle. The space battle became a demonstration of human superiority as Ben's adapted crews showed what they could accomplish when freed from normal biological limitations. Human ships that took direct hits continued fighting while their crews repaired battle damage in hard vacuum. Coalition vessels that suffered similar damage were forced to retreat because their crews could not survive in the hostile conditions. President Alex Turner addressed the galaxy from his office on Earth as reports of human victories poured in from across coalition space. His message was broadcast on all alien communication frequencies so that every species in the galaxy could understand what was happening. The human expansion had never been random or aggressive, but had always been preparation for exactly this kind of threat. Turner explained that every harsh environment humanity had settled was training for war against any species that would threaten human freedom. The coalition's ultimatum had activated a military machine that had been decades in the making. Humanity was not the weak species the aliens had thought they were facing, but something far more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The coalition leaders watched their empire crumble as human forces demonstrated capabilities that should have been impossible. They were not fighting one species, but dozens of different human variants, each adapted to different combat environments, and all united by a culture that valued freedom above survival itself.